Okay, so this is a special little healthy habits time, and we often get together twice. Well, we do get together twice a month, sometimes more if we have time, to talk about health related issues. We usually focus on not eating GMOs. We talk about Azure Standard food items, uh, recipes, healthy things for women, how to keep your hormones balanced, just all biblical. We don't do obviously pharmakeia. But today, there just someone in particular had asked us if we could do a teaching about feminine hygiene in the biblical way, because there is some confusion. It is confusing. We also don't have the temple right now. Judaism really makes a mess of anything it touches. They'd have you shipped off to the moon, and you know what I mean? It's all this confusion of what do we do during specific situations. Now, you could just do like I do and pray to go through menopause early, and I went through it 11 years ago, and I do. It's been such a wonderful life. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, it is not fun. I know that part of life, but there's issues with women and specifically things that pertain to us that we have to have extra precaution for. And so I think we'll kind of read through some of those things, also talk about it, ask your questions. Please remember this is recorded. Now, I will start off with a caveat with one of the most frequent questions I get from everybody, and this will only better only apply to those of you married. If you love Yah, you better not be doing nothing until you got the ring on it. You know what I'm talking about. But when you have relations with your spouse, you are ceremonially unclean until sunset. That's again how we know very clearly the day begins at evening, because you change state and status from unclean to clean all through Leviticus, and it always says at evening. And so I have for 24 years, I didn't, just people would come to me, what do you do? Do you wash your bedding every single time you have relations? What do you do? So my encouragement to you is to use like a towel or something under you on top of your sheets so you don't have to wash your bedding every single time, because that is an easy way to avoid a huge laundry load every single time. And that's about where I'll leave that. But the thing is, then what you do remember, it's not that you can't go to local fellowship. It's not that you can't be around other people. But if we had the temple, you could most definitely not go to the temple that day until after sunset, and then you would get what the Greek word talks about as baptized. You get baptized. You change state from unclean to clean. So you wash in water. In today's world, practically that looks like going and taking a bath or a shower. Either one. Some people are 100% insistent that you have to wash your hair. Some people are, those are things that just pray about. I feel like when we get so Judaistic, we could make like every single extra little rule and make it as difficult as possible. But I don't think you're sinning if you put your hair up under a shower cap and go in and just bathe your body after sunset. Some people like to bathe immediately. I do wait until sunset since I don't change state from unclean to clean. Then I wait until the sun sets and I go and bathe. Some people bathe immediately, but for me, I'm like, since I'm still unclean, wouldn't I just wait till that time? And then I consciously thank the Lord, thank you, Father, for this ability to change state from unclean to clean and come back into your presence. And there's nothing sinful in having relations with your married spouse. Notice my caveats there. So those are the things, but something that does help is just having towels. You just lay the towel down. It just helps with all that, okay? Because if you do get secretions on the sheets, then all of it does need to be washed. It is unclean. And so that's just something that for married couples you need to remember. Um, Men, if you have sons and they have an occurrence in the night while they're sleeping, those are men's issues, but that would again make them unclean till evening. You would wash their bedding and whatnot like that. Things happen sometimes in dreams with men. And so those are things that again, they wouldn't go to the temple that day. We see that David and his men ate the showbread, and they very specifically said, "We've kept ourselves from women 3 days." Okay, so there's an understanding that that meant they weren't having relations. You're not sinning by having relations with your spouse, but there is an uncleanness that comes from it. Sorry. Now to women. So first of all, let's go to Leviticus 12, talking about childbirth. So in Leviticus, we see the rules of holiness, a lot of the rules of holiness for the temple. Judaism takes it a bit farther than is needed to be done, and that's what Yeshua rebuked. But having a baby is a beautiful thing, but all the mamas know we're very thankful that Father says don't come near her for a certain amount of time because it does not feel good down there for a while, right? We're just like, oh, do not touch me. And so you're like, you know, you know what I'm talking about. You're sore. And so we have to remember that these rules are also for our blessing because sometimes men have one thing on the mind. And if you didn't give stipulations on the waiting period, they would just do, you know what I mean? They would be constantly doing it. So with this, let's read chapter 12 of Leviticus. Then Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, If a woman has conceived and born a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. As in the days of her impurity, I'm sorry, of her customary impurity, she shall be unclean." Please remember something. When you have your customary impurity, your menstruation cycle, you are unclean 7 days. Okay, somebody had there. I'm gonna mute phones. You are unclean 7 days. Judaism, because of what we're going to read in Leviticus, of a time where a woman is unclean beyond her customary impurity if she continues to bleed. So Judaism goes an extra 7 days. So they will abstain from relations for 14 days. So you have the 7 days of uncleanness and then the 7 days of purification is what they do in Judaism. Please remember that. That's Judaism. I do not believe from all my prayer and anything. That's not what Torah is saying. It's only saying if like you had like a cyst or an ovarian bleeding, something happened beyond the 7 days, right? Something that's not your just natural customary impurity, then you give yourself what 7 days of healing. Like that makes sense, right? Because if you have an injury, an ovarian cyst rupture, which I used to have, if you have any of those problems, you don't want anything up there by it. You know what I mean? It doesn't, you're like, this, stay away. So the Father is gracious and gives us healing time. Okay, that was a caveat. So there are these very specific 7 days that she is just as unclean during her as during her customary impurity. She could not enter the temple, and if anyone like were to lay on the bed with her or touch the blood or anything like that, they would also not go to the temple. They would be unclean till evening. Just so you know, Ezekiel is extremely clear. There are no relations during this time at all. You are not to have sexual relations with your spouse during this time. That's actually counted as sin. Even the book of Ezekiel talks about that. The Bible says it's a vile thing. And so, go ahead. Yes, Enya.
When you say lay with her, do you mean like lay or like lay?
I mean, like actual have relations.
Okay.
Yeah. So not just be beside her. And that's a good point because some people will go to separate beds. We'll talk about all those questions. Those are really good questions. When I'm using the word lay, I'm going to use it in the word of having relations, like not just laying down beside each other, but actually having sexual relations with each other. And so with a woman who just had a baby, just like a woman who is on her customary impurity, you are not to have sexual relations in any capacity. And in fact, let me look over here and find the verse. Um, if you go to, if we wanted to look at, I had it up here for me, but now I may have forgotten where I put it. Um, I'll find it. It's in Ezekiel, but I just was quickly making a note as I was eating my lunch here. Oh, goodness. It's in Ezekiel. I think it's 18, but let me just double check. Yeah, Ezekiel 18. It talks about it being a very vile thing. Let me just quickly hop over there and I'll read it to you guys. Ezekiel 18, verse 6, and then 22, verse 10. Um, and so in case you had any question or doubt and you thought, and your husband was trying to tell you, you can have sex during this time, here's what Yah says in Ezekiel 18, verse 6. If he has not eaten on the mountains, nor lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, nor defiled his neighbor's wife, nor approached a woman during her impurity. Okay, so then he's going to live. This is talking about these are the things. Don't do these. Those were bad things. If you look at chapter 22, verse 10, right over here, um, nope, that went to the wrong place. No, I'm in the right place. 22 verse 10, it says, in you men uncover their father's nakedness. That means they sleep with their father's wives. In you they violate women who are set apart during their impurity. Okay, so these are talking about great violations. These are talking about wicked things that father is upset about. And he does not like it for a man to come near and have relations with his wife. I mean, this is a vile thing in his eyes. One of the things we have to remember is our culture right now is oversexed. Our culture right now, like oftentimes we have women tantalizing men, body parts are showing everywhere. We have skin, skin, skin. Pornography is at an all-time high. It's a billion-dollar industry right now. And so without self-control, these men are just going rampant, right? Women as well. I actually do counseling and I've helped a number of women who struggled with these same types of issues, the pornographic type strongholds. And so if we look at the reason for relations, it is love. There is a bond of love there, but it's also for procreation, right? So we have to remember it's not about, it shouldn't be as nasty as the world makes it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's all cheap grace, cheap, sleazy, perverse lust and passion. Whereas it's supposed to be a very intimate, wonderful, beautiful thing with your spouse that is also a significant, oh, to signify our intimacy with the Creator in a special way. It does represent that, but it also is to create babies. Just remember that is to make babies. So we're dealing right now, with a lot of people. I'm dealing with a lot of men, helping them overcome this perversion in them. And so, women, in any way you can, please help. Just be modest, be mindful, rebuke any Jezebel spirit from you, and think of your brother. Don't and think of his wife. Why would you want to do that to his your sister? Never make a man stumble. Don't be that person in his life. Now, if he struggles and he's going to struggle, I get it. That's there can be things on him, but when he looks at you, he should feel a sister who is there to pray for him, not to make him stumble. And so we want to help them win. I would never want to make my sister feel insecure around me. I don't want your husband to look at me. He can call me Mama Mel. I'll give him a big old hut spank, you know what I mean? Send him in the corner type thing. I don't ever want, no, I saw you, Cassandra. I didn't mean it like that. I meant like I wanted to think of me as nothing more than a spiritual mother or a spiritual sister. I don't want anyone, any one of your husbands to look at me and think anything inappropriate. And I think that's how, if we love each other, we will really strive for that, for each other, because we love each other so greatly. And so, going back to this, um, when you have a baby, a male, you are unclean for 7 days, just like during your impurity. You would not go to the temple, you don't have relations. On the eighth day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. That's a beautiful little ceremony. If you've ever been a part of it, they're beautiful. And then she shall then continue in the blood of her purification. Now, blood purifies. If you pierce a finger, if you get a piercing wound, how do you know? Usually it's clean, right? Is if the blood keeps pushing out. You let that blood flow for a minute. If you've ever had a piercing injury, you do have to compress it, but for a minute you need it to flow. It purifies. And so the woman was unclean for the 7 days after the baby, and then she continues for 33 days in this blood of the purification. Her body is cleansing out. You're cleansing out the old, everything that, all that stuff in there. I've delivered a baby once. It wasn't my calling, but I will do it again very soon. And I'm thankful to do it. It's just still not my calling. I just put myself in the zone with the Lord. Thank you, Yah.
Thankfully, you'll just be there for prayer this time. You don't have to actually deliver the baby.
Maybe we'll see what happens. But yes, I delivered lots of animal babies. I'll always help with the cows and the goats. I don't mind with the people either. It's beautiful, but it's all good. So she's going to continue in the blood of her purification 33 days. Listen, she shall not touch any hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary until the days of her purification are fulfilled. Again, this is very pertinent to the temple. We will have the house of Elohim again. We do not have it right now, but her blood, as it's flowing, could touch one of the holy things. And then remember, if you defile one of the holy things, that holy thing had to be remade. And then so you had to add a fifth of the value to it or whatever it was because they had to remake it. It cost time and effort and money. Shekels. Okay. Shekalim. So 33 days of purification, a total of 40 where she's unclean. Some people have questioned, can you have relations during the 33 days? From a woman's standpoint, I think we kind of understand no, right? And even the medical world, which I disagree with 90% of the time, the medical world says abstain from relations for 6 weeks postpartum. They understand that a woman's not healed. You can rip, you can tear, it hurts. Now, for those of you who do believe that the 33 days of the blood of purification would not be the same, I'm not going to condemn you or judge you. I'm just saying personally, I believe that there is I mean, those of us who've had babies, you know what I'm talking about. You bleed heavier the first 7 days. And this 33 days, your body's continuing to clean out. Like the first 7 days is just like, just like, it's just like raw. And I think the next 33 days are that slow healing process. I'm not going to argue with you if you think during those 33 days you can, be with your spouse. I would say take it to the Lord. It seems counterintuitive because there's blood still. I wouldn't think, you would think that the blood is a sign, hey, don't do this right now. Again, I do know a few people who disagree with that, with my assumption that you should abstain completely during the 40 days. My assumption, though, goes with the medical world assumption of the 6 weeks of abstinence. And those of you who've had a baby, you know what I'm talking about. That 6 weeks is, you want that. As she's holding Camilla right there. She just remembers what that's all like. Okay. So verse 6, when the days of her purification are fulfilled, whether for a son or a daughter. Did I just? Oh, I'm sorry, verse 5. So, but if she bears a female child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her customary impurity, and she shall continue in the blood of her purification 66 days. Now, there's all different theories of why this is different for a man and a woman. Because your body doesn't feel significantly different from anything I've heard if you have a boy baby versus a girl baby. I've only had a boy. Um, but some people feel it's like the bonding time that a mom and daughter need, that there's something, syncretizing in the mother and daughter. Some people think it's just a sign that us women have to remember we are subjugated, we are not the head. There's the man. I don't know. I mean, on this one, I've never heard nobody
Right.
knows.
Yes.
Oh, did somebody have a theory? I heard somebody talking. Um, okay. So the point being though, if you have a female child, you are 2 weeks, you're the 14 days, just as much as in the customary impurity unclean, and then the 66 days of where you're in the purification, the blood of purification. Again, that would indicate that 80 days you would be unclean and not able to go into the temple. Now, again, there's a lot of questions about that, and we'll get some ideas here, what you guys think. But let's keep reading here for a second. When the days of her purification are fulfilled, whether for a son or a daughter, she shall bring to the priest a lamb of the first year as a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then he shall offer it before Yahweh and make atonement for her, make covering for her, and she shall be clean from the flow of her blood. This is the law for her who has borne a male or female. Now listen, that entire period of time was the days of her purification. Notice that as a male child, after a male child after day 40, she brought the offering. For a female child, she brought it after day 80. Okay, so we understand that the father still viewed her in some way or form unclean during that days of purification, right? As the blood is flowing. This is why I would venture to say the father still wants you to abstain from relations during that time. I will tell you, it is a very beneficial thing for you and your spouse to take times of abstinence to curb your flesh. It's We've had situations with people I've worked with where there was a 40-day fast from relations with one of the couples, and the man broke free of all sorts of demons in that area. He needed that very strongly because there was not that self-temperance. There was just lust instead of just pure love. There was improper motives. Now, who do we read in the Bible? Who do we read about that brought this offering? We see a very beautiful story.
Miriam.
Yep, Mary. So when she was done with the days of her purification, according to the Torah's command, she paid the offering. Now, does it mean you actually sinned? Like, did you miss the mark? Did you do something wrong by doing exactly what the Creator told us to do? He said, be fruitful and multiply. No, you didn't miss the mark. But there was a ritualistic type of impurity in Nidah where there was an understanding because of our human condition, we needed to cleanse from these fluids, which show our uncleanness, to enter the presence of the Creator again. And so when you're in Israel, how does this look? Or even in America, you don't have to go to a special part of the house. It doesn't mean you can't touch the couch. It doesn't mean you can't touch the food. It doesn't mean, because a lot of people get panicked. Like, what do we do if we're unclean? We're going to get into that in Leviticus 15. But I wanted to point out in verse 8 here, if she's not able to bring a lamb, then she may bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one as a burnt offering and the other as a sin offering. So the priest shall make covering or atonement for her, and she will be clean. She's going to change state from unclean to clean. See, they're very familiar with baptism and the understanding of unclean to clean. So she would be purified, go be washed, offer these offerings. Our Messiah's family, our Messiah is so humble. Our Creator is so humble that he came to a family that couldn't even afford the normal offering. I love that about our Creator, and I think we must always remember that, just to be completely humble before him. And I just also want to point out, like, even our Messiah's birth into the water, the woman's water, born of the water, even that required an offering, even though he's sin-free and spotless and Elohim himself. I think him going through this whole process with us is just beautiful. Now, before we get into too much others, so we can kind of look at the synopsis of this together, let's go to Leviticus 15. And we're talking about bodily discharges. I'm going to start in verse 16. And I know sometimes this gets awkward again, but again, when you are with your spouse, I encourage people to like have towels or some kind of bedding that you lay down on top of your sheets that you're on when you have your relations. It makes it much easier than washing all of the bedding. So that's what the Father always led me to do. And then I didn't know I'd have so many questions over 24 years of that. So that's what I tell everyone. I remember the first time because my mother started following Torah. I was like, oh, this is awkward. This just wasn't awkward. It's just, here's my mom coming to me, like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, mom. Okay, verse 16. If any man has an emission of semen, then he shall wash all his body in water and be unclean until evening. Again, he would not enter the temple. He couldn't have eaten the showbread. This is when David was talking about our men have been from women for 3 days. They did understand. Look at that. Men have been away from women. It just so you know, there is a demonic spirit of masturbation. That is not okay in God's eyes. And we can see very clearly if those men were 3 days away from the women and could eat the showbread, there was expected there to be no ejaculation of semen. So if you're stuck in that spirit, you need to get help and deliverance. And everybody, I've worked with a lot of men who knew the Father revealed to them it was a demon, in fact. And so if you are pleasing yourself, it's usually a spirit of self-pleasing, of self internal gratification. Please get help for that. I've helped women as well. And it's just a matter of self-control and breaking that off of you, and you will feel a huge difference. Don't be ashamed. Some of you were taught horrible things. I'm so thankful I was not taught sex ed in school. Like, I didn't know any of these things when I got married. Some of you came up against some hard things because you were indoctrinated from a youth. I Yes, I'm as innocent as and dumb as it looks. I wanted to buy edibles for my husband. I didn't know that was drugs. I was at the cashier stand recently and I wanted to go get him some cookies, thinking cookies. And I told him I'll get him something edible. My daughter-in-law is looking at me horrified. I'm like, what? And she's like, Mel. I'm like, what? Is I like what?
It's
Consumable?
like a cashier like my age, and she's like, yeah, now we need to go get your father-in-law edibles. I was like, oh my gosh. The girl was like, drugs? And I was like, no.
I'm thinking chocolate, brownies, or something like totally literal chocolate, not drugs. I did the same thing when somebody came to my door and tried to sell me Bud. My husband comes home. I said, I don't know why Kevin was trying to sell me Bud Light. I thought he was trying to sell me beer. And my husband looks at me, really? I'm like, yes, I couldn't believe it either. I was like 23 years old. I'm like, he was trying to sell me Bud Light, Jim. Like, why would he want to sell me beer? He goes, Mel, really? I'm like, yeah. He goes, no, no, Mel, you really? Like, honey, that's pot. I'm like, oh, I had no idea. And then one time I asked the cashier for purple chlamydia because I thought that was the purple flower called clematis. And my husband happened to be with me. And I said, do you have any purple chlamydia? And he looked at me and I'm wondering why he's all giving me that look. And my husband goes, she means clematis, the flower. So I sometimes would pray that you guys could have had my upbringing because I didn't know about this stuff. Praise the Father. But that being said, when I say something, it is completely innocent. And if it meant something bad, you can be assured I did not know what it meant because I am that dumb. So I just listen to the Holy Spirit. Okay. Anyway, so if a man has an emission, he is to change state from unclean to clean. Listen again at evening. There's no doubt when the day begins is at sunset. Any garment and any leather on which there is semen, it shall be washed with water and be unclean until evening, which is why I suggest laying a towel on the bedding. Okay? Because if anything gets on it, then you can just easily wash that. Also, when a woman lies with a man and there is an emission of semen, they shall bathe in water and be unclean till evening. So when you have relations, both of you are unclean till evening. If a woman has a discharge and the discharge from her body is blood, she shall be set aside. I'm sorry, she shall be set apart 7 days. And whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Everything that she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean. Also, everything that she sits on shall be unclean. Whoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Notice it says bed. This is very important for us to look at. And whoever touches anything that she sat on shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean until evening. Again, no deniability that the day begins and switches from the new day to the old day at evening. If anything is on her bed or on anything on which she sits, because that's the part of the body this blood is coming from, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until evening. And if any man lies with her at all, so that her impurity is on him, so she got the menstrual fluid on his body part, he shall be unclean 7 days. Notice the difference. If he touched what she sat on, not what her shoulder touched, not what her hand touched, not what her mouth touched, what her bottom part touched. Okay? Then he's unclean till evening, but if they had relations, he's unclean 7 days. And then the father just told us in Ezekiel 22 how that's a disgusting thing to him. And every bed on which he lies shall be unclean. Now, here's some things to consider. We see Rachel lying to her father, Lavan, and hiding the idols under her dress, sitting on a pillow thing. They did not have pads like we do today. So in modern terms, the bed on which you're sitting is that pad. That's the thing, because notice it says on what you're sitting, where that is coming out. It doesn't say your hand, doesn't say your head. It says on which you sit. Doesn't say what you touch. And this is very important to note because some of you get so freaked out. You're like, oh my gosh, can I even hug my husband? I'm like, well, yes. Why could you not hug your husband? You don't have blood coming out your mouth. You don't have blood coming out up here. Right? And so the modern thing we want to think about is back then they didn't have pads like we do now. They would sit on this pad, this like pillow. And she said, the way of women is with me. I cannot get up. Father, please forgive me. I can't get up. Now she was lying, but he understood what was happening. She was in her tent sitting down so her blood didn't go everywhere. Those of you who have animals and dogs, you know what it's like when all that blood's everywhere. Okay? Very similar. So when I prayed about this 24 years ago, because I had like Yah to help me and nobody else, I'm like, Lord, you got to help me. What do I do? And what he always told me, he says, now, if you were going to like hug your husband and he was going to be like, you would not do that if he was going to go to the temple that day. He goes, I would have him practice true, like not even touching anything on you, just because he's going to go to the temple. But he goes, your blood's not getting on him. Where's your blood? And I said, well, it's on the pad. He said, right. Rachel didn't get up. And he goes, I talk about right here, whatever you sit on. So what are you sitting on? Well, usually a pad. Now, I know some of you wear other and use those, oh my goodness, those little cup things. Whatever that is you guys are doing. Yeah, some of you use tampons. Some of you use cup things. I will say, be very cautious with, of course, with your tampons. Anything non-organic can truly cause a lot of problems. I think if we think in a spiritual realm, we understand that probably when tampons began being used was when women wanted their jeans skin tight and they didn't want a bulky pad being shown. Because I know that's what I heard my friends all say, oh, you can see the pad. So there could have been a different kind of judgment being enacted upon those women simply because in Modesty and Jezebel spirit. So maybe there's a whole different issue at hand. I do know though, at my grocery store, I only sold the organic tampons for the women. And I did sell those little cups, but those freak me out. I don't even know. I know there's a little cup that goes up there that you can dump out. I'm like, if you put that, I told my friend she used one. I said, if you put that in a sink, I'll come after you and smack you with a wet fish. I'm like, I don't know where you rinsed that out, but don't you dare do it in my sink. I don't even know what they do. I didn't ask, but I'm like, don't do it in my sink, girlfriend. I love you. Because I mean, honestly, we think about it, there's blood, it's gross blood. And so whatever it is, if you use those other items, I'm not going to judge you. But what we think about in modern terms is a pad. Now, I would encourage you women, there are reusable ones that you can wash, just like diapers. And thank the Lord I went through menopause already. But if I hadn't gone through menopause, I had already been considering getting those. But since the Father always told us we were going to have one child, I said, well, you just let me get this over with then soon. And he did. He blessed me. And so you can get those washable ones. But remember, if we have a temple, when we get the temple, if you still have this, because it says babies are still going to be born, it talks about life somehow being very much normal. Just we have the tree of life again. We have Messiah with us. We have a Sabbath rest on earth, a period of 1,000 years, how it was supposed to be lived out. You won't go to the temple during that time. Now, this makes sense because during the 3 festivals that are commanded to be attended in Jerusalem, who is commanded to go, men or women? Men. Because Yah knows some of you are having babies, some of you are during your menstrual period, menstrual cycle, some of you are healing from having the baby. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like you are excused from that responsibility, and the head of your home would go and get you the spiritual food you need. You're welcome to come if you're clean. You'd be welcome to come if you were clean. Obviously, we see Anna serving, we see women, female singers serving, but what we have to remember is like if our impurity got on and we touched those implements, those tools, we were already just told in chapter 12 that then we defiled that tool. It became unclean, right? And we were told in other places what would have to happen if somebody got uncleanness on these tools of the temple service, right? We would have to restore it. They have to make it again. And so let's hone this in a little bit. When you are on your customary impurity, you are unclean for 7 days, not 14. Judaism goes beyond. We're going to start reading that in verse 25 here, why they get confused. But you are unclean 7 days at the end of the 7 days at the sunset. So let's say you started your period on a Tuesday afternoon, day 1. Okay, so from Monday sunset through Tuesday sunset, you got in the middle of that day, that's day 1. You would therefore be clean at the end of Monday at sunset. And what I did personally at the end of Monday sunset, I would take all my bedding that late afternoon while I was still unclean, put it in the washer and wash it. And then at sunset, I would go bathe, take off all my clothes, anything I had touched that week of my clothing, throw it in the hamper. I'd go be clean. Then I'd go bathe, put on my clean clothes, and then to me, symbolically, this is just my little thing, like, okay, I'm clean again. Then I'd put the sheets that had just been washed in the dryer and go on my merry way. But I did take time to reflect and say, thank you, Father, for showing me the impurity within us. I do believe that the customary impurity is a sign to us of our human condition and our fallen state. I do believe it's to remind us of our uncleanness in his holiness, in the sight of his holiness. And so, anyway, at the end of the 7th day, you are to go and bathe, and all your clothing at that point you should swap out. Same thing after you have relations with your husband, but that's only one day. That's just at sunset. And so I'm going to pause before I go on to verse 25. Let me make a note here. Are there any questions, additions, caveats, anything you guys want to add at this point? Go ahead, Anna.
Okay, so this might sound silly, but you said at the end of your seventh day, you would like strip your sheets and wash your clothes.
Well,
So,
any of the clothes that were like, if I like had my workout clothes on the floor, anything that I had been wearing during those 7 days, not the stuff that's on my body until once the sun set, then I would take off the clothes on my body and shower and get, you know what I'm saying? But I wasn't afraid to touch them. I just always did these things symbolically to me. It was like, Lord, thank you. I just want to be clean now again. I don't know.
so, but when you said like you would strip your bedding on the end of the seventh day to wash your bedding,
Mhm.
so does that mean like so during your 7 days, like your husband wouldn't sleep in your bed with you because then he'd be laying on the uncleanness?
Well, so I think it's so he didn't actually touch, he wasn't on where my pad was. But because
Correct, but like you guys still laid in the same bed though,
you
correct?
could, yes, yes. And so, well, if he didn't snore, we would. But yes, there were times I tried to sleep there and then I'm like, I cannot sleep. So my point being, some people do mandate that they separate. It's not biblical. I don't think that you have to mandate a separation. It's just that what I understand, like I'm unclean. Like I was unclean during that customary period of time. So I'm sleeping on these bedding. It's like really close to me. It's a good time to wash your sheets anyway. Reminds you just to make sure you get it done, that once a month. Um, I know, like if he was going to go to the temple, I don't think he should be touching us at all. Does that make sense? Like if I'm on my customary impurity, just like if touching a leper. If you're going to go to the temple that day, I think you would stay separate, not just not relation separate, because there's a
Okay.
real strong level of holiness. And, if you think about it, Sarah had her own tent. So a lot of things back in those days may have been a bit simpler on certain levels simply because they did have their own tents. Rachel had her tent, Leah had her tent, Rachel had her tent, Leah had her tent. At the same point, it doesn't mean you have to sleep in a separate bed. Some people do take it there, and I'm not going to condemn or judge you for doing that. But what I do know for us, it was like we could sleep in the same bed. We're just not going to have relations. And he's not touching the thing on which I'm actually sitting, which would have been the pad. Does that make sense?
Yep, it makes sense. I just when you started talking about washing your sheets, I was like, wait a second. Are we supposed to
Yeah.
have like different beds? And then but never mind, you clarified it. We're good. That makes
Yeah. And
sense.
I just always did it because I understood that there's this human uncleanness on us. And so at the end of the 7 days, I always wash my bedding, I wash my towels, I wash everything just to, let's have a fresh start. Cassandra or Danielle or Katie or Sarah, you're all in the same room there.
It's actually a question from Sarah. What happens if our menstrual cycle goes beyond the seven
Yep,
days?
that's what we're going to read in verse 25.
Okay.
So that's a great question. Verse 25. We're going to get there. Sanine and Josie.
Did you notice like is it like a thing where because I think I've already finished menopause, but I'm not sure. But and my girls are just starting, so I'm just
No,
is
not.
there a thing like where they get on the same cycle?
Oh, it's
You know,
not biblical, but a lot of women in the same house will cycle together.
okay.
I just,
I
I
did
don't,
with my daughter, Bella.
okay.
Okay.
Which makes sense. The father would kind of put you in sync there
Yeah,
because,
it's a lot easier.
right, it might make it a lot easier for those times where everybody's unclean together. I don't know. My mother had two girls, and I don't remember anything like that. But when I was a young girl, my periods were 2 days. I bled
I
as,
also remember when I had a group of close friends, it was like three of us. We noticed that our cycles all synced up after a period of like hanging out all the time around each other.
right. Yeah. And I hear people talking about that. I'm not normal. Like my birthing experience was immaculately perfect. Like one push, my water broke. One push, my son was born. He potty trained himself before he was 2. I like literally my periods were so easy. I did start having the full 7-day periods once I had a child. Once I had Trey, my cycle did change a bit. For the first time ever. But I didn't ever get moody as a child. You wouldn't even have known. Like, I just didn't have those kind of mood swings that some women go through or girls go through. I just didn't experience that, which I don't know. So I don't ever, I don't, I'm not always the best source of some of that. Again, I prayed to go through menopause early, 39 years old, done, no hot flashes, no bad thing. I mean, it was just as easy it could be. So, but of course, remember this, my diet is extremely clean. Like, I didn't struggle. Now I do struggle with the fatigue and sometimes the brain fog because that just happens. You're just exhausted. You do notice that you can't eat as many calories, even though I still eat quite a few calories. I noticed a few things after menopause, so I do help with that. I do help with the hormones and I understand nutrition and health, but because I eat so clean, I truly believe it helped me. I don't eat meat. Anytime yeah, and they even call it meat sweats. So after menopause, if you've gone through menopause and you're eating meat, you will that increase that protein like flood into your body will actually make you have meat sweats. And so you really want to watch menopause for a number of those things. Really up your dairy intake during menopause, your calcium in different areas. So those kind of things. But back to this topic. Um, Let's go on to verse 25 then. If a woman has a discharge of blood for many days other than that of the time of her customary impurity, or if it runs beyond her usual time of impurity, all the days of her unclean discharge shall be as the days of her customary impurity. She shall be unclean. Every bed on which she lies, all the days of her discharge shall be to her as the bed of her impurity. And whatever she sits on shall be unclean, as the uncleanness of her impurity. Whoever touches those things shall be unclean. He shall wash his clothes and bathe in water and be unclean till evening. Again, this is why I've always thought, like, if my husband was going to go to the temple that day, don't touch me, don't even hug me. But if she is cleansed of her discharge, then she shall count for herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. So, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, you have some problem where your period is not 7 days, but let's say you keep bleeding for 50 days, 12 years, 40 days, an extra 8 days. You begin counting once your bleeding stops, a 7-day period of purification. And then you're not clean until after whatever number of days you bled, plus the 7 extra days, just like a leper was cleansed. Now, this makes sense because if you're having ovarian cysts that are rupturing, or if you're having some kind of internal bleeding problem, that means you're injured. There's something wrong, right? So the father is saying, hey, let's get this fixed through the Holy Spirit. I'm not, I don't advocate medicine and doctors. He's saying there's a problem. Let's get this worked on. Let's get this healed in you. Then give yourself 7 days to do that cleansing, healing from the time the bleeding stopped, and then come back. The number 7, of course, in Hebrew is the number Sheva, which is the basis of the word for both oath and perfection or completion. And so we see the cycle of 7 days, 7 festivals. There's all sorts of things that the number 7 implies. And that's why I think he always, and Father works in the same patterns he gives. And so he's talking about this period of 7 to be healed and cleansed. And so this does not mean that on your regular customary impurity on the last day of the cycle, then you have to count 7 days. That's not talking about this. This is saying if your period goes beyond, if your bleeding goes beyond the days of your customary impurity, then you begin counting the days of purification from the day you were healed of that bleeding. See, this is where Judaism differs from when I prayed about it, I asked the Father, like, do I need to go an extra 7 days? And he's like, no, look again. And so I looked and he said, this is if she's injured or there's a problem. He said, then once that problem is healed up, then you count 7 days till she could come back to the temple, do all those things. Now, there's no offering offered for a regular impurity, but the offering right here in verse 20 or 30 for this is, now why? There's an offering made for if you go beyond the bleeding. Why? Because there's probably an indication that there may have been some sin, right? Because anytime an affliction hits us, the Bible says, Yah says, I'm the God who afflicts and I'm the God who heals. So just like leprosy, these lepers had to go through this process of punishment or the leprosy, then they were cleansed and then they offered the offerings. But a customary impurity is monthly for a woman. You don't have to offer an offering every time you had relations with your spouse. There wasn't an offering every single time required. Those could be done just through a simple mikvah, changing state from unclean to clean. But with a child, I think the offering goes through this whole thing of this is a huge gift from the Father. And there's this offering, but part of it was the sin offering. So then people are always like, why was there a sin offering? Well, honestly, I don't know. Why was it a sin? Because it's not a sin. All I can think of is that it just reminds us of our uncleanness as humans in the presence of a very holy God. Because in the realm of the angelic realm, it says they're neither given in marriage nor do they have children, right? They don't have husbands and wives. So there's something in this human level of our soul and our time here as a human that we have to understand something's just there's a nastiness with an uncleanness with it. And we can go ahead. What was that?
Could it go back to like just like the original sin, like just because of Adam and Eve, it was just kind of like something that a curse blanket over humanity?
Exactly, because it's part of the curse of humanity. It's part of this lowliness of us, the baseness of us being humans. And it does say we will bear, children in sorrow and pain. Um, I don't quite understand where people are trying to escape things or I don't know. For me, it was just, I'm gonna have a baby. Got to do what you got to do. Like I didn't try to avoid the pain. I didn't try to do anything. I didn't take any, I just was like, let's just get this done, Lord, just help me through it. Um, but some people they've talked about different things that you have to go through the pain to experience the curse. Some people, I think sometimes people make life way too complicated. I just was like, let's just have the baby. Thank the Lord for the baby. And then, pray through it. If there's a lot of pain, just pray, lay on hands. The baby I delivered was nearly a 10-pound baby. The mother's contraction stopped. And I'm like, oh, Father, this is like right here. And that Yah told me to just reach in and the baby slid out my hands. I just spread those little things so the shoulders could get out. The baby slid into my hands and it was this beautiful experience. Even if it's not my calling, it was still a beautiful experience. It just was amazing. Yeah. So I think I'm not necessarily saying it's bad, Kim, to pray for a pain-free birth. I think I think we should just pray for the Father's hand. I'm not a person who avoids pain, but I have a very high tolerance of pain too. I broke my sternum and 3 ribs, and 30 minutes later, I did a newborn photo session. I broke my ankle, took one day off, and I broke my ankle visibly in 3 spots, and I didn't really feel much pain. I don't feel much pain. So I'm not trying to say that, but what I am trying to say is I think we make too big of deals about some things, and I think we should just worship our Creator and just keep going. Like, just not worry so much. But let's be holy. Let's treat him as holy. Um, just order our edibles and know that it means chocolate, not the bad stuff. Like, right? Like, we don't have to be overcomplicated. If I mean edible, I just mean I'm going to put it in my mouth and eat it. I didn't know it meant something else. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
And I think that the medical field and like just the world in general kind of puts that fear into women where it's like, oh, this is going to be the most painful thing. If you don't do the medicine, it's going to be the most painful thing. So then when you're like
Okay.
wanting to do it natural, it's like, get ready because you're going to be in pain when it's like our bodies are meant to do it.
Yeah, and I just didn't study anything. I remember the nurse screaming at me to breathe, and I'm like, but I am breathing. She's like, and Jim goes, you were so sweet to her, and she was just yelling at you. And she was screaming at me to breathe. I'm like, I'm breathing. She goes, use Lamaze. I'm like, I don't know Lamaze. I'm just going to have a baby. And she was like so mad at me. But I will tell you, the Lord repays, because when my water broke, because I said, ooh, I think I got to push. And she goes, oh, honey, this is your first baby, blah, 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 putting me down. And I said, I really got to push. My water broke. But where did it break? Up into the air right on her head. I'm not joking. It went through my husband, like he said he'd never seen anything like it. I pushed, my water came out and went right on her head. And so then I was like, oh, I had to push again. And she goes, honey, this is your first baby. You're gonna get infection. You're gonna do all these things. You didn't even take Lamaze. You don't know what you're doing. I'm like, oh, I gotta push. So I just pushed, and all of a sudden, whoop, there's Trey, right? He's like out, and she pushed him back in, like just to go do the episiotomy. And I'm like, just let him come out. And I kept saying, would you just let him out? Would you just let him out? But anyway, the point being, I do believe head knowledge is a dangerous game. And I think that's what Catherine is saying. Just the same thing why I tell you guys to stay away from the apocryphal books. Just stay at the feet of Yeshua and know his voice. That's how I hear his voice. Like he literally talks to me. I'll be walking through, he'll tell me which aisle to go in. He'll tell me who I'm going to see that day. He'll tell me exactly what to do, what to wear, and it always is his voice. Like I didn't know it was going to rain. There's no rain in the forecast. He told me to take an umbrella and 2 sweatshirts. I'm like, okay, I didn't know this one was going to get wet. But see, if we overcomplicate and overthink, we can't just hear. It's okay for me not to know what edibles are, and just to really think that it's a chocolate brownie I want to get my husband from the health food store. So my point is to all of us, with all of this stuff, come back to the basics, take a deep breath. And Lord, what are you telling me? And what we can see is it's on what you sit. Very clear. It doesn't say what we touch, what we hug. The blood's not on that. So it's like the pad. And that's why Rachel didn't get up. So it's not wrong to come to my house if you're on your customary impurity and sit on my couch. You're welcome to come sit on my couch. You're not wrong to give me a hug during your customary impurity. Don't go to the temple. Do you see how, like, it's not like a sin, it's not a big problem. And when we have the temple again, those of you having babies, hey, you just know what to do now. Or in those of you having babies this next couple months, you know what to do as far as like to abstain from relations during this amount of time. Let my body heal. Let it be purified. Let it be cleansed. There's just a beautiful picture in this and of healing and the Father caring for us. The same thing. Okay, sorry, a little bit TMI, but I'm a farm. I've been a farmer most of my life, and my mama cows get away from the bull for a while. Why? Because that bull will be all over her the minute she cycles again. And so sometimes she's just not ready. So you watch your cow, you see when she's healed, and you put her back in with the bull when she's ready. You know, you have specific times. Like it's okay to let them heal. And that's what the Father was also protecting us. He knows it's a curse put upon us, but he's in his grace and mercy giving us that healing time. Okay, Cass.
So I just wanted to like ask for clarification because I know I went through it. I don't go through it anymore. Praise Yah, I've
Right.
been healed of it. But I used to regularly, every cycle, go to about 10 to 12 days. Does that mean after the 12 days or 10 days, I wait an extra 7?
So
Because it's
let's talk about this. I'm going to tell you a situation that might be hard for some of you to hear, but some of your husbands are not faithful. And sometimes the Father is protecting you from uncleanness within them. And I think there were things going on that we know. I know for a fact one of you got your impurity when your husband was unfaithful so that he could not touch you. Um, and so sometimes when you are having these extra flows of blood, it really could be a protection of the Father for you from an unfaithful husband who's doing pornography or something disgusting against you, and the Father sees. So he is trying to put this little bit of punishment on the husband. Go ahead, Cass.
But what about like children? Because I got my period around 11 and it was always like that.
Right.
Always.
Right. And not always, right? Sometimes it is a sign of your uncleanness, and you were an atheist at the time. You could have been assigned to your mother, who was a very impure person. So sometimes here's the thing. I think there's a difference between a bit of spotting on either side of the 7 days, but you were actually bleeding heavy. So if you're actually bleeding heavy, first of all, if you're 11 years old, definitely not even an issue or consideration with the spouse. Okay. But I know that it could have been a sign because, to be fair, our period in scripture is used as a sign of uncleanness. The father uses it, oh, your uncleanness is like that of a woman in her customary impurity. Because it is gross. Like we all know that. Like nobody likes it. Like period blood is disgusting. Could you imagine like have your husband come home tonight, take some ketchup, pretend it's period blood, throw it on him. He's gonna gag, right? We all know that that's like disgusting. There's something subconscious in us with the Torah written on our heart that we just know there's an uncleanness in that's gross. Um, so I would take that in prayer. I know that I don't mean this, I'm not bragging. I am so not bragging. When I prayed about why I only had my blood for 2 days, I truly was a very innocent soul. I was very obedient. I didn't disobey anything my parents said. They called me the preacher on the playground. I literally did have a very pure heart in a lot of ways. Now, when my periods got harder after I had my son, I will tell you what it was. I was getting very hurt by my husband, and I was starting to struggle with a more impure heart. My husband had a game card the other night and asked me if you could reclaim one blessing from your youth, what would it be? And I normally still have it. I'm a very forgiving person, and you could do anything wrong to me, and I just won't even remember or care. I'll always forgive you. I always was like that. My mother said she hated me. I didn't believe a thing she said. I was like, okay, she loves me. I never had any trauma from it. Like you could literally come and pop my sister. I was beat up. Let me just say that. I just didn't care. I don't have any problems. I'm like literally just like literally as dumb and happy as you would think, right? It's like I didn't hold any grudges. But when I had my son, I was really hurt by things from my husband. And that was my uncleanness. The Father started to show me I was unforgiving. So I am going to say again, as I always do with all of these things, please take it back spiritually and ask the Father what's going on. I do know one of you. I don't even know if she's on today. Hopefully she might be working because I praise Yah, she's getting some jobs. Her husband is very not okay to her right now. And I believe her bleeding is a sign to him because he's very vile and is very mean to her right now. Very mean. And I do believe the Father's protecting her. It's so horrible. Just, oh, I would want to take all of your wounds because some of you guys are being treated so horribly right now. Okay, go ahead, sweetie. We have another question. So, yep. Just had to undo it.
Hi, Melissa.
Hello, sweetie.
How are you?
I'm doing
Um,
well.
Good. I had two questions. Whatever
Mhm.
you want to answer, that's easier. But one was about birth control, because
Okay.
I had gotten a 10-year copper IUD when I
Okay.
had my son. He's 9 now, and
Okay.
I know my husband. I had 2 daughters with my first husband,
Okay.
who was very violent, and I know God doesn't like violence. You know, I mean, I'm not talking a smack here, a little, I'm talking thrown downstairs, choked
Yeah.
in hospitals, in shelters. It was bad. But I would give him excuses because it was because of drugs and alcohol. He was very sweet and loving when he was sober, you know. And it hurts to this day because, you know, I had 2 daughters with him. But he's not a God-fearing man. Like he it's tough. But God sent me my second husband, which, you know, we're doing the feast. He's everything like that, which is great, you know, and he works on stuff that he knows he needs to work on. And, you know, I just wanted to know, what do you think about remarriage, especially when it comes to, I'm not just talking about remarriage just because I left the first one for no reason, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? And about birth control.
First of all, I'm very against birth control. The father
Okay.
has had me have some very awkward conversations with people.
Yeah.
One
I
time,
figured I have it in my spirit that it is wrong,
it
but
is
I
wrong.
was wondering if there's a, I know there's like a cycle on the moon, or if some women do that, but I'm like, I think God just wants us to let him handle it.
He does. And so there was a couple very actively trying to not have more children. I've asked the Lord because the Lord speaks so clearly to me and he was telling me stuff. I'm like, Lord, I'm so sorry. I don't want to give away a gift, but please, I don't want to know all these details about people's lives. So unless it matters and it's something spiritual, please just show them. I've never been
Right.
positive. Okay. So anyway, one person had a dream and they called me for interpretation. And I said, okay, Lord, I'm doing chores. I remember carrying 2 wheat buckets and I was like, Father, show me what the dream means. And he said, they're trying to prevent having babies. Tell them to stop. And I'm like, oh,
No.
I don't,
What?
oh man, that's a hard conversation to have. So I called him. I'm like, this is so awkward. But the father just told me, apparently, you guys are trying not to have babies. So you need to stop. And they both received and they both repented because apparently they were trying to not have babies. And yeah, bless them. So here's what we understand is that I know some people use, well, what about animals? Well, we are to kibosh and subdue the animals, but the Father says to be fruitful and multiply. And we live in a culture right now that hates children, that makes women feel like we are victims. Whereas, oh my goodness, what a blessing it is to be a mom. What a beautiful gift to be a wife and a mom.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we have been raised in a society that is very contrary to what Yah
It
wants.
gets in your head, right? Like
Exactly.
I feel like because I have well, they say I have mental health problems and blah blah blah, but I get scared because I couldn't do it with my first two, you know, and I feel like overwhelmed.
Oh,
Yeah.
you serve a creator who gives you whose ability is way beyond your sufficient, your ability. And so nothing is too hard for him. Remember, after I told our whole local fellowship, I said, the Father told me I'm going to be as exhausted as it comes the day you have the Solberg debate. And he goes, it's going to be the Holy Spirit to come over you, and all it will be is me. If you had seen me that day, the people local know I was wiped out, worn out, had nothing left. It was a miracle of the Father. Anything that came out was him. I was completely nothing. So there's no denying that it was him in me. And that's how all of you have to be with your life. Your life is him and you. And so nothing's ever too hard. You can do all things through him.
Yeah.
He gives you the strength.
Right.
Is it hard? Yes. We have lived in a
I think
medicated,
too.
easy,
Um,
pacifying world where we
yeah,
make everything simple. We don't want to feel any pain. We don't want to do anything. But guys, it's going to be hard. And through the hard, we push through with Messiah. Yeah, helps.
and we've been praying, like, Lord, am I wrong for a second marriage? Because a lot of people were on me, like, you're wrong. You're in
Well,
adultery. You're going, you know, and I'd be like, am I wrong? But why would God bless me with such a good son? And I've been blessed so much, you know, and with
well,
dreams and visions and, you know, but I do feel that I'm getting ailments and I'm not giving, like, I feel like, Lord, there's something I'm doing wrong, that, you know, migraines, like, why can't I get rid of, like, there's something I gotta
yeah.
do with my husband and my son. They're like, they want another baby. And I'm like, I'm too old, or I give excuses, you know, but in my head, I just feel like I can't do it, or
And you can. Here's the
yeah,
thing with remarriage. First of
or
all,
am I, yeah, I'm remarried. Is this right? I don't know. I just, you know
so
how the devil is in your head. You gotta shut those
absolutely.
down, like you said, stop worrying.
Right. Well, here's the thing. All of us have made sinful behaviors. None of us are here because we were good people. So one of my very close people had divorced her first husband. Um, he beat the crap out of her, stole her credit cards. But when she came to Torah, she understood that she should have got to a safe place and prayed for his soul rather than divorcing him. Now, in the meantime, she had married a second husband, and she
Okay.
said, "What am I supposed to do now?" And I said, "I
Right.
would check with the father." And exactly what I already thought, but he said, "Tell her she remains here and sanctifies this husband and moves forward. It's okay to ask for forgiveness and repentance for what you did in the past, even if it was wrong. So I don't know your whole situation. I'm not going to say
Right.
it was sinful. I don't know what all happened. I will say this. Even if it wasn't, even if it was sinful, you are here now. Okay. So you go through the details of your first breakup. Was it from a hardened heart, a rebellious heart? Were you supposed to, would Father have said, hey, go over here and pray for his soul? Either way, say, Father, forgive me, accept the forgiveness and go on from here, right? Go on.
Mhm.
Abraham married his sister. I bet the day he was hearing from Yah that, yeah, that wasn't exactly what I had in mind. You know, you shouldn't have married your sister. But look at the thing, look what the father did through it. He had already anointed Sarah, a prophetess, and Abraham. So Father works only through broken, imperfect people because that's all he has to work with. So I have to believe that he allowed you to get here and allowed you to be with this man for a reason. Okay, that's what I firmly believe. And so that that being said, it doesn't mean sometimes we still don't have to go back and look at our actions and say, was I sinful? I know one person now who is lagging. At the time, she always said her husband never cheated on her, never beat her. She just left him because he ignored her. Now she tries to say he did cheat on her, but I even asked her mother and she's like, no. So we can't change the story. Let the truth
Mhm.
be the truth. And if we need to say sorry, we have a very gracious God. God's not going to ask you to go back once you're married to a current husband. He's not going to say, go back to this person. Don't divorce this husband. You don't make another sin. So once your eyes are open to the truth of what you've done and where you're at, if you're in a covenant now with this husband, embrace it, honor it, and make this built on Yah. Like I'm saying, it doesn't mean in the past you don't have to still say sorry for something you did. I know people
Yes.
who have divorced their spouses, and at the time they did it from a wicked, bitter heart. But looking back, we can still see, and I was told by Father that he did release them, but they just did it the wrong way. He just says, just ask for forgiveness. See, the thing about our Father, He's so beautifully forgiving. He's so merciful. If you mess up, if you do something incorrect, it's just okay to say, hey, I mess up. And I'm not going to hold anything against any of you. Surely He's
Mhm.
not holding it against us if we said wrong. Sometimes there's a consequence. My husband got a vasectomy when my son was 1 month old. We were already told in a dream we were going to have one child, but he panicked after I miscarried. Well, because we didn't know Torah. So I got pregnant 2 weeks after Trey was born. And we
Okay.
had a
Mhm.
problem. Not 2 weeks
Mhm.
after, 4 weeks after. I'm sorry, it was 4 weeks. I literally got
Okay.
pregnant right away.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
but can your baby carry a new baby right after you have a baby? No. So I miscarried. So then it freaked my husband out, and he goes and gets a
Oh,
vasectomy. But like the father said, we were only going to have one anyway. But you shouldn't have been doing this. You were supposed to wait the 6 weeks. You know. So my point is, he worked through our sin. I still had a consequence. We were never going to have another child. I used to smoke. I used to party like a rock star. I have
yep.
some tooth damage. I do have physical consequences for some of the actions I made, but I am 100,000% forgiven. I'm
Amen.
forgiven. And so now with migraines, that's a bit different than just a female issue, but migraines are often being short-sighted unto blindness. You're forgetting the things that you were mercifully forgiven of, and sometimes you're being unjustifiably judgmental to somebody in your life. So migraines can sometimes
Mhm.
be you're having an evil eye and you're forgetting to show the mercy to the people around you who need mercy. So your thoughts are wrong. And
Okay.
that's just from my own experience. I haven't had migraines for years, but what the
Wow.
father always showed me, it was that, Mel, you're forgetting to show mercy like you've been shown mercy. You're acting self-righteous in this.
Right,
Like,
right.
oh,
I have a sister-in-law that I have she's Honduras, so we have a different upbringing. And she feels she's better than me or
okay,
jealous of me, and I'm like always trying to strive to be friendly and get her approval, and
right,
then one minute she's talking to me and then next she's ghosting me and acting stuck up, and I'm like, Lord, why am I consumed with
right,
this? Like, why can't I just forgive her and let it be? But like, she's the only, like, my husband's mother lives with her, so she has like a
right.
$500,000 home, and
Okay,
like,
yeah, keep a
yeah.
little bit on track. I'm sorry, just because we have so many
No,
people.
you're fine. Yep.
Yes.
But maybe you're right. Yeah, I will look into
Right.
that. And I do need
Right.
to do more forgiving. Thank you for that. Thank
Yes,
you
and
so much.
so migraines in women, that is a woman's health issue. Let's talk quickly about that. It can be from GMOs. It can be from chemicals,
Okay.
and they're triggering unhealthy patterns in your body. It can be from, and so those again are spiritual applications and insinuations as well. So if you're eating GMOs physically, sometimes spiritually you're eating indoctrination of demons, right? Something from Satan and God mixed together. So migraines can be stress, tension, frustration, anger, short-sightedness, looking through kind of bad head
Yeah.
space, right? Okay, so bad headspace. And so for anybody now in general, with the discussion topic of remarriage, the Bible clearly says, if somebody commits adultery, you are free to leave. But here's what we have to remember. Yeshua talks about taking the higher road and forgiving and showing mercy and grace. And so I have done a lot of counseling with marriages where, in fact, the spouse was told to stay there, pray for them because it was their worst day. The vow was like, I'll be there for you on your worst day. So the spouse is covering the person, they're praying for them, rather than leaving them. You always get to safety, but I know that a lot of us have had dreams, and I have had to counsel people through, and I've seen beautiful marriages. Some people came this summer to say thank you, even because when you work through and you let that vow do its work, when you work through the problem and you let that vow have its perfect work in your life, you get to see a beautiful thing that the vow was for. You get to see the reason you took that blessing, that vow, and you get to see exactly what Messiah is doing in us, the unfaithful bride, the unfaithful person, being so mercifully pursued, forgiven, and shown grace, to continually pushing us to repent and renew ourselves. Now, that being said, if a non-believer leaves a believer, you are in fact free. Even Paul saw that, and you can see it in scripture. So if a non-believer leaves you, you are in fact free. And I do believe if he leaves completely or she leaves completely and you said, hey, I don't want to leave, I do believe you're free in all aspects. I firmly believe that. When I have prayed about it, it has always felt to me that you are completely free. Now, Paul says it'd be better to remain married to Yah, focus on him. Why entangle yourselves with another person? But at the same point, there is that situation. Now, if you're a widowed or a widower, most definitely you can. If you're a Levite, you do have a higher calling, you have a higher standard. I always told my son that because we are from the tribe of Levi. I'm like, you better make sure the girl you get, she's this, this, this. And I think he got the best wife he could have. Like, we are so thankful for our daughter-in-law. Um, and she's going to keep him in line. I love that. She's
Thank
going to
you.
be respectful, but keep him in line. No, we do. I tell Jim all the time. I'm like, we have the best daughter-in-law. And at first I was a little like I'm not sure my daughter-in-law is going to like me, but I'm not sure because she had some things to maybe like, I'm so different. I'm just so, and she was just coming into Torah, but I just gave her space and I was like, what she needs to do. I said, I can see that Trey needs her. I can see that Trey needs her, and it can see, she needs Trey. So they help each other. So what I will say is this, in 28 years of marriage, I didn't get here because we had a lot of easy days. 28 years of marriage, I've gone through hell and back. And two dreams, the Father came to me and said, you be there for him. And even in those hardest days, I don't regret staying there because the beauty and the relationship we have now, even on the days when the demons are strong, I'm just like, I said, I looked at him recently. I said, I'm going to fight for your soul. I haven't left your hide this far, and I'm definitely not letting Satan have you now. I am not letting Satan have you. I said, I will do whatever it takes for you to become the bride of Messiah. And that's my vow to him. And so I think that's what we have to remember. And I do marriage counseling, that marriage isn't about us. Marriage is about each other. Marriage is about help. It's not about how he treats me. It's about how we help each other get to be the bride of Messiah. And that's, if you truly love your spouse, that should be your whole commitment. And therefore, you're not going to leave somebody on their hard days. So if they're addicted or they're doing this or drunk, you're not leaving them when they're down and out in Satan's grips. You're going to fight that demon that has their soul entangled. Now, all of us have made mistakes. I was not a good girl. I danced on tabletops. I'm praying that videos I made are destroyed. I don't know what's out there. But what I do know is I'm forgiven. And I'm not that girl. And I was innocent in a lot of areas, but not innocent in others. Let's just say that. So when you come to this place of at the throne, all I ask you to do is humbly be willing to be wrong anywhere because God forgives you. Don't justify any action from your past. Just say, Father, show me so I can say sorry if it was wrong, and I'm going to go forward from here. What we often find is people trying to justify, well, I think I was okay to divorce or I wasn't okay. What I always say, do you know how it's okay to be wrong? It's okay just to say, I messed up, Daddy, which is why I embraced Torah so easily because I didn't care if I was wrong. I was like, well, I messed up big time making you a birthday cake at Christmas. Nothing about Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so willing to be wrong that it didn't matter to me. So this is what we have to remember. It's okay to sit there in the arms of your creator who sees all your wrongs and loves you and holds you. But come, like my grandmother, it was horrible. She was a very godly woman. She's a Jew. She was called a dirty little Jew. She had been a very faithful wife to my grandfather, who was very evil. My grandfather was very abusive to her, very bad to her, not okay. She had a hard life. But Father delivered her because at one time, my grandfather was a drunk and alcoholic, and she said, I give him over to you, Lord. I can't do this anymore. And the next week he had a heart attack and died. And so then she was free to remarry. And my grandmother was very beautiful, very talented, just an amazing woman. And so she was constantly courted by men because she was a catch. Well, she ended up entangled with a married man. And he was in the process of a divorce, but he was not a godly man, not a believer, not free to remarry, not in any way. And my mother went to her and said, Mom, you can't do this. This is against God's word. And my aunt went to her and said, Mom, or Doris, this is not okay. So 20 some years later, the father kept continuing to make me press on my grandmother. And finally she snapped at me. She goes, what do you want me to do? Divorce him? I said, no, you have to stay married. You made a covenant. God simply wants you to acknowledge what you did was wrong and sinful. Say sorry, be contrite and humble in your spirit, and he can take you forward from here. He didn't ask me or tell me to have her leave my step-grandpa. He said, just please help her to understand what she did was wrong. And so I think a lot of you need to hear that. Father is just waiting for some of you just to say, okay, I messed up. I had a hard heart. I was bitter when I left. I was judgmental. I didn't honor my vow. Forgive me. Let's go forward. But there are very obvious cases and situations where people are free to remarry. One of my very closest friends was so scared about getting remarried when I met her, and her husband cheated multiple times on her, constantly. I said, the father is telling me you're free to remarry. And this is before I knew her whole situation. I keep hearing you're free to remarry, but she told me, I was like, oh, yeah, that's what the father's telling me. So that's why I just take it to him. He will never contradict his word, but he will tell you what his word means, the spirit of it. Okay. Well, we went a little bit longer, but I just, let's go ahead and if there's any more questions about female health, female relations, anything I didn't clarify. And like I said, some of it we're not going to really know until we have the temple, right? How are we going to walk it out practically? But what I will say is just don't be afraid to hug somebody if you're on your period. Don't be afraid to whatever. But at the end of the 7 days, just go ahead and do the practice of washing your bedding, washing your clothing, changing state from unclean to clean, and have lots of babies. And you can send them all to me, Mom Ellie. I will hug them all and love them all. Oh, Kim asked a question I just saw over here. What about backaches during menstrual cycle? A number of things. It could be you're not walking uprightly. It could be you're being stabbed in the back. It could be that could be a physical, just a natural consequence of the fallen world and the judgment put on woman because we are told that will be our curse. Dang that Adam and Eve. Dadgummit. But guess what? I always say I would have been right there eating that apple with them or whatever. It's not an apple, but you know what I'm saying. I would
Um,
have juice running down my fingers and my chin too.
I know that when I was younger, I used to have really bad cramps in my back and everything. But I also had a horrible diet. It was when I was in college. And so I probably I wasn't eating clean.
Okay.
So it was, I think, a lot because then once after I had children, like I was more regular and my cycles weren't as heavy. And
Kim eats well. I know Kim eats well.
yeah.
She makes everything from scratch, all organic. She's healthy. That. Um, but thank you for the advice to others because bad diet really can influence that stuff too in your cycles. I know for menopausal women like myself, it really helped that I ate very clean, avoid meat at all costs, drink lots of water. Um, yeah, us old women. Someday I get to give my old sister Connie a hug. We need to get her down here to America, huh? That stinking Canada. Okay. Um, and I hope I gave you a few helpful hints and suggestions, like um, maybe that wasn't what you wanted. Is there anything else you guys have questions of for women, particular issues, since this is open up to that?
Katie has a question, but she's waiting till the recording ends.
Okay,
It's
well,
private.
okay. Well, I'll go ahead and stop it. Oh, okay, you have another question. Go ahead.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just wanted to ask one more thing. I did talk to you about my daughters. Now, I just I've been praying about it and praying about it because my oldest, she's very doesn't believe in God. She's very worldly, dressing worldly, because their dad raised them, But I just feel it's on my heart to let them go for a season because it's really bringing me so down and depressed and like I offered to take her job hunting, take her this, and all she did was argue with me about homosexuality and abortion. I said, abortion. I said, can we change the subject? Um, and she's very just wanting to argue and be right. And then I called her and I said, now listen, let me talk. And I said it with a stern voice. And she said, you're not going to talk to me that way, and hangs up. And I'm just at a loss. Like, what do I do? I mean, she's got that very prideful spirit in her. She has to be right. I don't know what
Right.
to do. What do I do
Yeah,
biblically?
well, yeah, and you can send me that's not that's definitely a little bit different issue, but
Okay.
yeah, it's definitely don't be afraid to be parents and you're gonna have to have tough love. It's and we gave our son the ultimatum when he was 17, you either abide by Torah and our rules or you move out, and he moved out and that was heartbreaking. But I let him, and I didn't coddle him, and I didn't sit silent. I didn't change the subject. He's like, "Why we always got to talk about God?" I'm like, "Because I love your soul, and I'm not going to let you go to hell on my dime."
Amen. Amen.
So,
Amen. Yeah, she's
so
19, and yeah, she's just
yeah,
listening to the world, and
okay.
so
And yeah.
frustrating.
Well, awesome. And are there any other questions regarding just like the female issues, like with that stuff? Miss Jeanette has a question. Oh, we can't hear you. Don't die while you're driving. Are you driving and doing
No,
that?
I pulled over.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I don't, sorry, I'm late, so I don't know if you already answered this. So like when we take our bath and we wash our bedding at the end of our period, um, so is it basically like kind of like the 8th day that we take the shower? Like we have to wait till night at the end of the 7th
No,
day?
not you can so like and the end of that, so let's say thank God I went through menopause, but let's say I got my menstrual cycle on a Monday. And so that would have been Sunday night through Monday evening, day one, which means I would be clean again the next Sunday evening at sunset. So right before right as the sun's, right before the sunset or whatever, I would wash my bedding uh on Sunday and whatnot. So on that seventh day, and then I would remake my bed after the sunset. right? So, and
So
then you
you
take,
complete you
yeah, you
complete
complete the 7
days.
days. You completed the seventh day. Well, you can wash your bedding during that day. And
But
then
it's kind of like on the 8th day that you're showering at night.
kind of, yeah, it is on the eighth day then because you
Okay,
as the
because
but it could be between the evenings, but as at the end of the seventh day, then you go and you shower and mikvah and you change state from unclean to clean. Yep. Just the
okay,
same
that's
thing
what I've
like
been
when you have
doing. I just
relations.
wanted to make sure.
Yep. And just like when you have relations with your spouse at the end of the day at sunset, then you go and wash. Again, anybody who tries to say the day begins at dawn, no, it doesn't. It begins at sunset.
So it doesn't count, like, say you have relations, something like that. It doesn't count if you bathe and it wasn't evening yet. You have to again bathe at evening.
Some people like bathe immediately, but I wait till after sunset because it's like, well, you're unclean the whole rest of the day until sunset. So I just wait until I'm going to switch that state calendarically as well as physically. But I know some people who like they have relations and then shower. And I asked them once, I'm like, why would you do that? Why don't you wait till sunset? But there's whatever, that's what they want to do. Again, I'm not in the business of condemning over those types of things. If they're trying, they're trying. And I don't see that they're necessarily wrong in what they're doing. Like, I'll fight you all day long if you try to say there's a lunar Sabbath calendar. I'm like, no, there's not. If you try to say the day begins at dawn, I'll be like, no, there's not. If you try to say you can offer the offerings in your own home, I'll be like, no, you can't. Like, I'll fight on the things that are not debatable, but the debatable issues and if nuances of how long to have your beard. If you want a bird's nest with 15 birds, go for it. If you think it can be clean shaven to a half inch, do that. Whatever, as long as you have a beard. So you want to wear skirts, you want to wear pants. They're both women's and very modest. Do what you do. You know what I'm saying?
Sorry, I have one more question. Sorry I was late. So I really wanted to be here for the questions.
That's okay.
Okay, so my other question is like we have like multiple beds in our bedroom and like I drive myself crazy because I like wash everybody's bedding on the same day after I'm done with my period. Like because my son will like throw his blanket like on my bed. So like I do have to wash everything that touches my bed, right?
Not necessarily. We talked about the fact that it was what you sit on. The Bible, the verbiage is extremely clear. That's what you sit on. So your pad is what you're sitting on, and your body. But I would technically on your bedding because you're rolling around the sheets. I always washed it at the end of the seventh day. If he just threw his like a sweatshirt on your bed that didn't have the blood on it because the blood was on your pad, I'm not going to say that needed to be cleaned. I'm not, I think that's where we can take things a little, how far does it go? Right? Do you burn down the whole house every period and build a new one? And so it's one of those things where Cass is like, maybe we just burn the whole thing. But if like your pad and he threw his sweatshirt on that, then definitely I'd be like, that's unclean. If he was hugging you that day, he wouldn't go to the temple and he would take a shower at sunset. If like I'm under the sheets when I'm sleeping, and so if my son had thrown, well, he didn't have one, but if he had a blanket, or he did for a while, maybe if he threw his blankie on the end of my bed, I wouldn't think that was automatically unclean, based on understanding the nuances of what I see. Now, if it was like where I was physically, if it was on me, then I'd be like, okay, whatever, let's just go ahead and wash this. Um, but yeah, some of that you might want to go back and watch some of this from the beginning. We talked about some of those things, but I know some of you get really panicked in your head and you're like, ah. One of the things you have to remember, these rules are primarily for keeping the temple and the implements in the temple clean, and pure. And also it's to show us our unholiness and our baseness versus his holiness. It's a judgment put upon us for Adam and Eve's curse. I mean, there's all sorts of things for this. And the 7 days is kind of a rest break for us where our bodies are in this state of shedding the uterine lining, going through this process of cleansing and renewal. And it's an abstinence for our husband, teaches them to abstain. And it literally says what she sits on, sits on, sits on. Well, what they're sitting on, they used to have like just like this pillow type thing because they didn't have pads like we do now. And so, kind of like a dog, animals just put their blood everywhere. And so, as humans, we created these ways to catch it on like pads and whatnot. But you don't necessarily have to wash your son's bedding on the day you wash your bedding. But I was raised in a family where we washed our bedding every week. Some families do it every other week. Some families do whatever. I will say this. Let's talk about this a little bit. Somebody brought up today feminine hygiene. Now, I have homemade on the Healthy Habits program. I have healthy alternatives where you can make your own deodorant, your own soaps, and everything. If you don't shave, you have less risk of breast cancer. I will say your hair follicles do extract the um, yucky stuff from your body, but most women in America shave their armpits. If you don't shave, you could stink. So how do you avoid that? How do you do that? Now, I don't wear deodorant at all, but I've been organic and my diet is so clean. I used to have people be shocked. They're like, "You don't wear deodorant?" And but I don't stink. I don't go around stinking. I mean, did you guys came to the retreat? Did I smell like a hot piece of garbage? No, I don't wear deodorant. Um, but that's because my diet's extremely clean. I don't stress, and I do shave my underarms. You don't have to. I do, but taking that shower, and I shower every day. I'm a very clean person. I was raised where you showered every day or every other day. Some of you were raised more hippie-ish than me, and that's fine. You do you. But how can you then eliminate your orders? I will say eat as healthy as you can. Make sure if you do choose to have your armpit hair, bless you, there's nothing wrong with that. It's completely how Yah made us. Just wash it, you know, and keep your diet clean. And then there are natural deodorants that are non-toxic that you can make. I have some of those recipes and stuff on the Healthy Habits program. If you need help, I'm sure you can just Google them also, how to make your own deodorant. But also when you stress, if you worry, women, you're going to have bad odor. And hormonal changes can really make some of you smell a little bit like hot garbage. And so if you find that people have to take big breaths and turn the other way when you're around, you may want to consider showering more frequently, making sure that you use a natural deodorant product. EO, literally the letter E and the letter O has a great deodorant. It's one of the only ones I've ever found that works. And the Urban Cowboy, HERBAN. If I ever have like a really sweaty day where I'm out in the field a lot, yeah, breastfeeding sweat is the worst. Yeah. If you ever have a really hot, sweaty day, or I was going to, and I was like going to be around a lot of people and clients perhaps that night, then I'll take my husband's Urban Cowboy. Boom. But I do make sure it's non-aluminum based and it's healthier and whatnot. But again, kudos to you if you don't feel like shaving because it actually seems to be healthier for your body. The Father designed us for a reason to have that hair. Often the hair shaving practices came from a sense of from a impropriety in our society and immodesty, and there's a lot of things attached to that stuff. Now, you can do whatever on those. I don't think it's sinful either direction. I don't think it's sinful to shave. I just know that then you may have body odor, and I do think that that's why they did anointing oil a lot back in the day because they didn't have access to the baths and the showering facilities that we do have today. And I get that. So the anointing oil, the myrrh, and the frankincense would help cover it. But for the sake of us around you, if you love us, right now you have access to lots of water. Please shower. Please shower. The other thing I will point out, I have been around women before. I'm raised from a German Jewish family. Our ditches were manicured. Like, you better not have a spot of food on your clothing when that child goes out in public. Like, right? It's just, we were very proper. Your pants were creased on the front line. It's like I had to I had to iron hours a day every week. Hours a week every week. Some of you, though, during that time of month, please, I would encourage you to bathe during that time quite frequently because you don't want that smell on you. because I think that's a spiritual sign as well. So keep yourself clean. And I think that that's just cleanliness is next to godliness. I do believe it is because the temple of our God is pretty clean. You look at his standards, you look at Ezekiel, cleanliness is next to godliness. And so he is so concerned about cleaning and how to keep clean. I'm not going to add Judaistic laws to it. I don't want to do any of that. But I think we should respect ourselves enough and respect each other enough to somehow keep ourselves like, because, you know, when the blood's flowing and stuff, it could be like crusty, gross, smelly. Keep clean. You know what I mean? And if you have children, young girls, teach them to be clean because I think that's you at least owe them that right to understand their options. And then if they choose to be filthy, that's on them. But at least teach them the path of cleanliness because I just firmly believe it's important. You don't have to wash your, I mean, I understand you can't wash long hair every day. I understand all that. I understand those types of things, but you can wash a body every day. My mother grew up in a family of 5. They had to heat water on the stovetop. They washed every day. Like they had they had to share one little slop bucket in the kitchen. They all had to hop in this little wash tub one at a time. My mom was the oldest, so she was always last. But no matter what, they were going to bathe. You were going to be clean. And so you got to think about the application of this as well. If we are told to bathe after relations, and we've talked about our culture being oversexed, we probably have to understand they probably didn't have relations as much as they do today, right? They weren't so sex driven because you were commanded to mikvah, bathe at the end of that day. And they didn't have access to water like we do now. They didn't have all of that. Israel's a little bit better. Israel was very advanced, had water pools and bathhouses and stuff like that. But um, and yes, long hair on a woman is usually our covering. Sometimes some women, when I first came to Torah, I was told to cut it off, and I did. But then I've been told not to cut it since, and then it fell off once when my husband was having some severe issues. But the Father showed me the reason it started falling out was because I took my eyes off the Creator. We've gone through a lot of demonic episodes, and if my eyes are on the Creator and I'm obeying no matter what my husband does, and I'm keeping joy and praying for him and not getting bitter, my hair usually stays long, usually goes through it just fine. Not always. There have been times where your hair will be a very strong sign to your spouse. I get that. And then is being single as a woman a spiritual issue affliction? Not in a modern feminist way or by choice. Not necessarily, sweetie, because if you're single and you maybe one of y'all's servants, like maybe you are just his maid servant that's called like Anna. You know, Anna was a widow. She was widowed from a very young age, and sometimes Yah chooses just different people to be married to him, and so it's not necessarily affliction. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Is our world easier in some capacity if you have a husband? I believe so, but I was determined to be single my whole life, and then we see how that worked out. Because Yah told me that was my husband. Is it okay to paint your nails? The Father has always told me no. The Father has always told me it's a sign of vanity and he wants the eyes off ourselves. So I have been told since 2002 never to paint my nails. Somebody did it once and she then got the dream because I told her she was my close friend. I didn't say anything at first because I let people's walk be their walk and if it's a debatable issue. And she asked me one day what I thought because she was getting convicted. I said, well, the Father's always told me not to. She goes, that's the same thing I was thinking. It's vanity. The Lord kept saying vanity. I said, yeah, we're not to be vain. When we're painting our nails, we're all like, look at make me pretty. Our whole focus on life should be save souls, bring eyes to the King, turn eyes to the King. Why are we focused on what we look like and if someone thinks we're pretty? So the Father really told me it's a deceptive thing that women get trapped in this thinking of vanity where they don't even realize sometimes what they're doing. It's just those little snares. And so morning sickness can be spiritual, but not always. Yeah, and definitely don't dye your hair. Dandruff can be, oh man, there's a lot of things over here. Yeah, being single can be such a blessing. Yes, Anya, you are right. Not that we don't love Ruben and Jim, we do, but there's being single can be a blessing. It's good in both ways. Dandruff can mean a size of being flaky. Maybe you're being flaky, your husband's being flaky, spiritually flaky, you're flaking off, unclean and impure in ways. Usually it's dead skin. Could be, I know one person who was having very demonic attack when she had dandruff of anxiety. And then morning sickness and pregnancy symptoms. I think usually it is a sign spiritually of like your body adjusting to the spiritual growth you're going through. I don't think it's necessarily a sinful thing. I think it's just like a sign that you're going through something. Like, and it is a little bit nauseating. Like in all of our spiritual growth areas, usually are a little bit tough. Like I gotta admit, like there's like changes and you have to overcome things and good questions. I do believe, I know the Father told me women are not to wear makeup. I know that's hard for some women to swallow, but every single person I know that then took it to the Father in prayer was told the same thing. I do not condemn anyone if they do it. I love you. If you color your hair, I still love you. But I will say, I asked 20 some years ago, I asked the Father, is this just for me? And he said, no. It's for all my women. I do not want them painting their eyes. I do not want them to give in to a seducing spirit. I do not want them to be thinking about, am I pretty enough or what do I look like? He goes, tell them to think about me and what I look like in their life. Like, enough said, sir. And it was hard for me at first, even though I almost never wore makeup. Like I wore like a little bit of lip balm or lip stuff and then mascara. Some days I'd wear eyeliner, but I didn't wear makeup. I never wore all whatever they paint their face with. I never did all that cake stuff. I didn't do it all, but it was hard to let go of that. And the Father said, do you see how wicked this is? It's made you insecure that you don't even feel beautiful in the skin I gave you. And he goes, and how dare you teach a child that she's not beautiful unless she's fake? And I'm like, oh, you got me, Lord. Thank you. I will say modesty is very important. When you bend over, please, girls, think about, can they see anything up here? If you bend down and the girls are hanging out, that is not okay to your husband or your brother. If it's just you and your husband, do what you want to do. Right? I am not the person who says like you can do wicked, perverse things. Christians really will I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you can dress nice for your husband. You can, like I came out of the bathroom yesterday. Well, this is going to be, no, are we done recording? Did I push stop recording? I think it's not recording, right? Oh, it is recording.
It's definitely recorded.
We're going to stop.